Quick round of introductions. We're being recorded. My name is Willy Oppenheim. I live in Seattle, Washington in the USA, and I'm here and excited to meet you all.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Leva Rouhani, and I teach at the University of Ottawa. Happy to meet you all.
And hi, everyone. My name is Cadesky. I'm calling in from Ottawa. I am a PhD candidate, hopefully wrapping up imminently, at the School of International Development and Global Studies at the University of Ottawa. I've also had the privilege of being a TA, a teaching assistant on the UO Global course, co-taught by Professor Rebecca Tiessen and co-designed by Leva Rouhani. And I've also, I have the privilege currently of working with Willy and Omprakash as a mentor.
Great. So I'm going to share a little bit about Omprakash, which is the organization that I lead, and it's one of the two organizations we'll be chatting about today. But more importantly, I'm going to share about the broader structure of our session, which we're really excited about. So very briefly, Omprakash is a nonprofit based in the US with partners all over the world. And there's two things we do. We firstly curate a global network of social impact organizations, our partners, and we help them connect with students, donors, researchers, and with each other and all kinds of resources and opportunities. And secondly, we have an online learning and mentorship platform called EDGE, through which we build customized online learning programs to advance critical reflection and dialogue, particularly related to questions around power, privilege, difference, culture, and social change. So that's what I do. We'll be talking a bit more about Omprakash, but really that's not the focus of this session. What we are excited about in this session is experimenting with you all in real time with some innovative pedagogies and practices, which, as we understand, is the purpose of this conference. So we will not be using PowerPoint. We will not be delivering any monologues or lectures. We will be doing some participatory modes of engagement to explore some of the themes that Rebecca mentioned. So just to give a brief teaser, we are going to use a participatory theater approach. And we are also going to use a facilitated circle dialogue approach. We'll talk more about these two approaches, but the main thing to emphasize is these are pedagogical tools to help us develop empathy and listen more deeply to each other and navigate complexity and conflict without wearing the mask of sort of academic propriety, or this is how one is meant to behave at a conference, or this is what I must do to get my next resume boost, but to try to bring a more human, tender, compassionate, and playful element. So that's what we're here to do today.
And right before we get into that playful element, I will just talk a little bit about the UO Global program to give some context of where we're coming from. So as Rebecca mentioned, the three overarching key themes for the UO Global program, but as well as for this presentation, is looking around ideas of agency, allyship, and rethinking what it means to say global and international. And so the UO Global program gives students the opportunity to really reflect on what global citizenship values mean, what do they look like, what does it mean when we talk about intercultural communication, cross-cultural experience, specifically at the local level, and really understanding how we can expand community-based global learning. But I'll stop there and we'll get more into that just so we have time to be playful.
And guiding our playfulness for the next hour, we're going to be drawing on Augusto Boal's work. Some of you may use his work or be familiar with it already. He really pioneered the model of the theater of the oppressed. It was very much inspired, of course, by Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And this approach really encourages dialogue and questioning and analysis of structural aspects of oppression and discrimination, as opposed to simply acceptance and tacitness. So it's always with the view of to challenge unequal structures and systems with the goal to foster social and political change. So in many applications of theater of the oppressed, the audience is not passive. So we are hoping that you, as at the moment, our audience, will actually be invigorated, inspired, and compelled to join us a little bit later on in our hour to participate in helping us to shape a scene. So the type of theater, as I mentioned, theater of the oppressed is sometimes referred to forum theater. And it's been used in lots of different ways in lots of different disciplines: social work, international development, politics, health, all sorts of ways. So you may have encountered it in different ways. So some of the principles of theater via press, we're gonna incorporate into our scenario today. So how it's gonna work, so we, the 4 presenters, will each be representing a different character. And we've created these characters based on composites of people and opinions that we've seen throughout our work, doing global education, either as students or teachers, as educators, or all of that. Our goal is not, our goal in presenting our scene is not to help everyone decide which character is right or wrong, but it's rather about engaging and creating dialogue. As Willy said, it's really about, it's about dialogue, it's about exchange and self-reflection. So reflecting on what we've learned from observing and eventually participating in this scene. So we're going to play the scene once, the 4 of us. And after that, we're going to have a chance to discuss and reflect using the circle practice that Willy alluded to, which we'll learn about more later. The teasers continue. And then after that discussion, we'll return to our larger group and we'll start the scene again. Hopefully we'll have time. But this time we'll invite you to jump in as what's known as spect-actors. So not spectators, but spect-actors. Everyone is a prospective actor in that scene. So you can move between your role of spectator and actor. So for the first presentation, you can sit back, watch the scene, feel free to take notes of any reactions you may have or any questions that the scene brings up for you. And yeah, we look forward to playing with you and sharing in this pedagogical experience. So I will set up the scene and just give a brief blurb about our characters, and then we will launch right into it. So I myself will be playing the role of a student. Leva is also going to be playing the role of a student. Willy is appropriately attired today and will be playing the role of a seasoned professor who leads and has led for many years a study abroad experience. And Rebecca will be playing the role of a representative of a host organization, most likely located somewhere in the global south. So I hope you enjoy. And begin scene.
Hey, Professor Willy. I saw the flyer just outside of your door, and I want to actually go on placement. And so I really want to empower people. I saw this flyer. It says just sign up, go to Africa. I don't really have the time. I have like all these exams coming up, but I really, really want to empower people. So can you just like tell me where can I sign up?
Yeah, you're in the right spot. You know, we've designed this program. I've been running it for years to make it easy, streamlined, and efficient for students like you to really experience development at the ground level. And so we do a wonderful tour with our host partners. You'll be able to really do some important service work, but don't worry about the planning. We've got this itinerary totally dialed. You just sign up, pay the fee, and it's going to be amazing. I'm so glad that you're interested.
Perfect. So there's like no paperwork on my end or nothing that I have.
We're going to make it easy for you. I mean, it is vital that you read our, core texts, of course, but don't worry about planning the trip or anything.
Hi, I'm Jessica. I'm also in your class, and hi, Professor. Hi, Leva. I think we had the same class last year. I couldn't help it over here, but it sounds like this going abroad experience is pretty top down. I'm kind of surprised considering, all the things that we talk about around allyship and, flattening power dynamics and decolonization. I'm just wondering, is there maybe a chance that I could contact the organization myself and start to build a relationship with them?
I have published extensively about decolonization, so you might want to check out some of my work. But yeah, the fact is there's just no need for you to try to contact our partners directly. They're very busy. And I understand as a young sort of naive student new to this work, you kind of want to figure it all out for yourself. But again, we've been doing this for years. Just sign the forms and it'll be great. Oh my goodness, our host partner is actually joining us right now. This is amazing. The magic of Zoom. Rebecca, how are you?
Professor Willy, it's so good to see you. How are you? How is your family?
Everyone is great. And we're just so excited for another trip to visit you and your community. It's just so great having this deep partnership.
Yes, and I just wanted to check in, and see how things are going.
Yeah, same plan as ever. We'll keep it easy. That's, keep it streamlined for everyone.
Hi, Rebecca. Hi. It's so good to meet you. I've heard so much about your organization. I actually did a project on it last term. I'm super committed to participatory development and decolonizing the development process. And I'm just wondering if maybe there's a chance that you and I could have a chat about the program, and maybe I could come out a little bit earlier or stay a little bit longer. I'd really just like to know what you need and how I can help and maybe what I can offer.
Yeah, Rebecca, don't worry too much about her. I apologize, but I've explained to Jessica that the dates are set and no need to kind of undermine our whole trip here, Jessica.
Well, you know, Professor Willy, we just got this new project that we're starting to evaluate, and we're looking for someone with some skills in monitoring and evaluation. Maybe that's something that Jessica could help us with.
Absolutely, I would love to do that. I took a course in this last year. I feel really, really ready. Yeah, happy to fly out, happy to do that kind of work. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, again, I mean, Rebecca, I just want to remind you, we've been doing this for years and just kind of trying to keep it streamlined for everyone. I wouldn't want to make things more difficult for you is all.
Right. Right. Well, whatever is best for you, Professor Willy, of course.
Right.
Thing is, I don't really have time to plan ahead. Like Jessica is saying, I really am looking for something where I can just sign up, show up, empower people, get that line that I need on my CV, really build my skills in that way. Maybe if it is going to be like this really long thing, maybe if there's something more local or.
Oh no, Leva, you should join this program. Trust me, it's going to be great.
Actually, Leva, I was involved in some really cool opportunities on campus this past year, and I'd be more than happy to share them with you. You know, you don't necessarily have to go abroad, although it's super cool, and of course everybody wants to, including me. Yeah, there's lots of really cool programs on campus. I'd be happy to chat with you afterwards at the grad lounge.
Yeah,
virtual grad lounge.
Of course, there's lots of great stuff going on around campus, and you should check it out. But there's just no way to have an authentic global experience without really, being there on the ground. And that's why I think we've been running this trip for years. It's gotten great feedback, so you should really join. And keep in mind, Rebecca, also, if we're able to continue running these group trips, we'll be able to keep on making those annual donations to your organization, which I'm just so happy to be able to support your work in that way. So,
well, we really do appreciate those donations. They mean a lot to our organization, but I'm just thinking about this option maybe of, maybe there's some space for working individually and directly with the students and creating a program where the student can really help us in a more meaningful way, maybe for a longer period of time than the normal 3 weeks that you come. But we really do appreciate what you do for us, Professor Willy.
Right, and when you think about the university accreditation and the financial aid and the risk management, there's just a lot going on here. So we'll have to think about it a little more.
And Steen.
Okay, so I'm sure, or at least I hope, that all of you in the audience have lots of thoughts and questions, and we are now going to explore that through a circle-based facilitation method. Excuse me, allow me to step out of my costume. That's not really my vibe. So what we are going to do is go into 4 breakout rooms, and in each breakout room, one of us will be there as the facilitator. And as I've mentioned, we're going to use this circle-based facilitation method. Now, we could talk a lot about circle practice and circle keeping, and I just want to introduce it in very brief terms. Indigenous people around the world have used various forms of circle practice as a mode of building community and holding space for dialogue for millennia. We certainly don't claim to be experts at this, nor do we want to suggest that there's only one way to do a circle-based dialogue. Of course not. The approach that we'll be using is we've been learning about recently through the context of restorative practice, which, if you're not familiar with it, is a whole approach to building community and reducing harms within communities. I'm sharing a link to one really cool organization in Maine that advances a restorative practice approach. And so circle keeping and facilitated circle dialogue is one tool within this larger restorative practice approach. And we're sharing it with you now, not only because it's a great way to discuss our skit, but because it's another tool hopefully all of you can take away from this session in your pedagogical toolboxes. So the way it works is actually shockingly simple, but the first time I encountered it, I really felt that it was transformative in my own teaching and facilitation. This is how it will work. In each breakout room, we will establish an order of the circle. Maybe we'll just go alphabetically. And the facilitator will ask a question, and we go around the circle, and each person in order has an opportunity to respond to the question. You can always pass, nobody has to speak, but this very simple structure we have found can create more opportunities for all voices to be heard and more opportunities for deep listening, because rather than thinking, oh, should I jump in next? You kind of know when is your time. Everyone will get a chance. So the facilitators have a few questions queued up, and we will spend, I think, about 10 minutes in the breakout rooms. I think that's the plan. The only other question which we can just think about here in real time is, given our numbers, how many rooms we want to have. But I think Rebecca or Leva are making the rooms right now.
Yeah, so there's going to be 4 of us per room.
Perfect.
Perfect.
So we'll see you all after the breakout rooms.
Great, enjoy.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm sure your breakout rooms were as stimulating and generative as mine was. We're going to have 2 minutes or so just for folks to share. And it doesn't need to be like summarize what happened in your breakout room, but just how are you feeling right now? What is coming up? I know probably some folks had something they wanted to share and didn't get a chance. Maybe there were some differences within your room or some consensus, but I'd love to just open the floor for anyone to share. Please jump right in.
Well, I was going to say, if you don't mind, Scott was saying something in our room and we got totally cut off. Could you maybe finish? Because it seemed like a really interesting point you were saying, Scott. Could you maybe finish what you were saying? Is that okay if I ask that just to, because I'm really intrigued to hear what you had to say.
Okay, thanks, Leonard. Just the point I was making was that one of the tensions in the vignette was between folks, I think, who saw the purpose of the trip or the engagement to be really about work and about creating something and about working together in a way. While there was another axis, it was more about sort of study, seeing, observing, but perhaps less fully embedded in a creative process. You know, that of course there's room for both, but it really affects, I think, people's views and the structure of programs and all of those questions that were at play.
Thank you so much, Leonard and Scott. Maybe time for one more comment. You can respond to that, or just anything else that you're feeling is welcome here.
I'm feeling that feeling engaged and invigorated and enthusiastic. You know, sort of 7:15 in England.
In that case, you're going to love the PowerPoint that we prepared, which is
great. Suck it.
So, thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone. And now we are going to go back into the scene. But here's the exciting part. Now all of you are spect actors. So you are watching, but you can also participate. You can make up your own role and you can jump in at any time. Let's not worry too much about like, how would it be possible for you to join the conversation? Let's just say it's an open Zoom conversation or whatever. Anyone can join at any time. You do not need to say what you truly believe. That is not the point of this. You can embody a perspective which might be different or unfamiliar to you and try to engage with these different characters. And the last thing I'll just say is our goal here is not to resolve conflict and to make everyone happy. That's not necessarily the goal at all. Our goal is to explore nuance and to sort of try on different shoes and see what it feels like. And so in that sense, if you want to jump in and argue with a character or tell a character that they're wrong and they need to stand down or change their mind, feel free. At the same time, it can be equally generative to step in and try to empathize in some way or try to connect with the character, even the sort of unsavory parts of them. So with that being said, the 4 of us are now going to resume the skit kind of right where we left off, and anyone can jump in at any time. To make it a little more clear, I will ask that everyone start with their cameras off, except for the 4 of us presenters. And then turning your camera on is essentially a way of joining the conversation. Anyone can join at any time. You can play any role. This is not about saying what you think or deciding who's right. It's about connecting with each other in some new ways. So, by the way, a small little nugget, in the participatory theater world, the role that I'm playing is often considered the Joker. Some people describe the Joker as kind of the midwife trying to bring out some new creation. But because of sort of staffing issues, you might say, I'm also participating in the play. But at times I might sort of step out and become the Joker a bit more. Begin scene. Yeah, Jessica, I sort of feel like you're trying to undermine all the work I've been doing for years to build this program. And I know you've got these ideas around participatory development, but you know, it's not that simple, especially when you're navigating all the institutional bureaucracy and everything.
I want to be sensitive to that. I mean, but everything that I've learned in my undergrad studies so far leads me to think like, I just don't want to be placed passively with an organization that may or may not even want me. So Rebecca, I mean, what do you think of that? I mean, am I even going to be helpful if I come out to your organization?
Yeah, we really appreciate all of the help that you provide. We want your help. We need your help so much. We need, more Canadians to come. It's really important for us to have as much help as we can get. So, and the longer you can stay, the more effective you can be. So this is something that, we would really appreciate if maybe you could stay for a year, 2 years would be fantastic.
Wow, that is quite a big commitment. I don't know. I have some other things happening in my life. I take care of my grandma.
John, welcome.
Yeah, Rebecca, do we really? I mean, you know our organization better than I do, but it seems to me that the support that we get from Professor Willy's university, it kind of doesn't fix the problem of having kind of a carousel or a kind of rotating door of short-term volunteers come through organization. The amount of energy and resources that we have to pour into, tooling those people up to be modestly useful. I appreciate the sentiment of people like Jessica and the other students who have very good will. But it takes a lot of energy for us to tool up people, and then if they're there so briefly. So I understand, Rebecca, you're trying to maintain good relations with an important funder, supporter, but I wonder if at some point the downside is just it's too much for us to bear in our daily work on the ground, to absorb, with due respect, volunteers of uneven capacity and relevant skills.
But Professor Willy, I know this is something that we can talk about this at another time.
Yeah, I've never heard you express those concerns, so I don't know who this John guy is, but I mean, is he new or something? Oh, anyway, I think our other colleague Anu is joining us.
Hi, Professor Willy, and hi, everyone. I'm Professor Anu. Willy, you and I as colleagues have been in a couple of these meetings over the last few months where we're trying to rethink as faculty at this university, trying to rethink the relationship between faculty here and the partners abroad that we work with. I can hear sometimes in your voice, and I have felt this too, a sense of nervousness about what it means to maybe let go of the ways that I've been doing things. There's a lot of familiarity in that. We are experts in a range of ways. I'm also really learning, though, that my expertise in some ways has not allowed me to really grow my humility in other ways. And so I'm on a journey thinking about some of this, and I'd love to go out to lunch with you in the next week or two, Willy, Professor Willy, my colleague, so we can talk a little bit more about kind of, the uncomfortable position that you and I and other faculty are in as we are trying to hold a program a lot around risk benefit and legality and all rules and regulations, but also think about what our partners might need. So would you like to go to lunch?
I would love that. And yeah, I mean, truthfully, I just feel sad to think about losing my relationship with Rebecca and her community. It's been a big part of my life and my professional identity. And I get paid for it also, which is, you know, part of this. But oh my goodness, Nathan has joined us too.
Hey, Rebecca, I was just walking past your office when I overheard snippets of this conversation and just wanted to remind you as your local UN rep that your funding, part of your funding is contingent on the quality of the service that you provide. And, you know, I'm a little nervous about you potentially bringing in some unvetted help.
Well, Rebecca, didn't we get that multi-year grant to support ethical global partnerships and fair trade learning? I mean, the UN can't really touch that, can they?
Yeah, there's many ways that, you know, we work with different partners to fill the different needs that we have as an organization. You know, we're doing our best to manage sometimes very difficult situations. And, you know, there are some problems that we've had in the past with students, but most of them are great. And we really, you know, we want to keep those students coming. The problems that we've had, we can deal with those, and we'll talk to you about those another time.
I'm just going to put on my Joker hat for a moment and just remind folks that when you join, you don't need to disappear. You're welcome to keep going. And also John has joined us. And the last thing I'll say as the Joker is perhaps some program alumni or students would want to join us as well. But John, please go ahead.
Thank you. Professor Willy, I was just walking by your office and I've heard from several students who are, I think, been speaking with Jessica, and they've been thinking of traveling on their own outside of the group. You know, I represent the risk management team at the university, and it's a real concern of mine to have our students outside of the facilitated trip. You know, we have our guardians taking care of them, chaperoning them, making sure nothing happens to them. You wouldn't believe the phone calls I get from parents calling me about their students and safety, and it just gets really unwieldy really fast. I appreciate the students' enthusiasm, but, you know, there's certain limits and constraints that we're operating within here.
I absolutely agree. You know, it's a dangerous world out there. And that's why traveling with seasoned veterans is always my suggestion.
I'm just really surprised at the way that this conversation is going. I mean, in our classroom, we talk endlessly about community development, about partnerships, about being active, not passive allies, about performativeness versus, you know, authenticity. And here we are talking about risk. I mean, what isn't a risk? Like walking down the street on campus is a risk, isn't it? I mean, we could talk about things on campus if you want to, but I don't know, I'm having a little bit of an epiphany. Like, what are we learning in the classroom versus what are we trying to do here with this experience? What does this all mean? Leva, are you also having this existential crisis?
Not really, to be honest. It makes me nervous just thinking about going there without having my chaperone. I really like it to be structured and organized and, you know, pay my dues and someone to tell me what to do. So not really on the same bandwidth, but I see Leonard here. Leonard?
Yeah, I'm with Jessica, but even more so, this sounds to me, this is such a one-sided perception, even from Rebecca's side. Because what the heck are we doing, man? We're going to go there and watch the movie in an NGO camera that's going to tell us what's going on. We're not going to freaking do anything. We're here to talk about change and assist throughout the world. So what we're going to sit in an office chair and fill out some files and check a little checklist and have a little issue. We'll hold our hands to go to dinner. I mean, I want an experience. I want to apply what I'm learning, and this is really frustrating.
Thanks, Leonard.
Jessica, you know, since I'm a career counselor at the local business school, I actually think the greatest impact you could have on the world is starting social entrepreneurship projects overseas. I wouldn't even go the development route, if I'm honest.
I'd love to learn more.
Well, folks, as you may know, our meeting time's wrapping up. I actually have a conference to attend. It's about social entrepreneurship in development. It's very hot these days. But I do think a few other colleagues wanted to chime in here.
Yeah, Jessica, I am also from the Career Center, and I'm curious, it sounds like you've studied a lot about community development. I'm just curious why you feel like going to apply your knowledge overseas in this program is that you're in a better position to do that than to say to work here locally in Seattle. What is it that makes your skills unique to help organizations outside of the United States?
Well, that's a really good question. I've been doing a lot of stuff here locally on campus as well. I actually was part of this really cool program called UO Global, which maybe we'll hear about a little bit later on. And I was hoping to take some of the skills I learned there and see if maybe it could help me do some work overseas. But yeah, I mean, I also have some doubts. This is all about, the critical approach to development studies that our professors have been guiding us through for the last 3-4 years. I've read that book.
And end scene. With many apologies to all those who didn't get to participate as much as they would have liked to, but that was wonderful. Round of applause for everyone. Yeah, and we can turn the cameras back on and just like celebrate for a moment that sort of narrative energy that emerges when we enter into that. So I love this, regardless of the content of the skit, which we'll be discussing further, but hopefully this tool, this approach is feels good to you all, and it's something you can use in your own teaching and practice. And it works via Zoom. I think we've been doing it throughout the pandemic, and it's even better in person maybe, but I've found it to be quite powerful via Zoom. So anyway, thank you all. We definitely want to have time for further discussion of all of that, and we will, but we're going to sort of briefly zoom out a little bit, and Rebecca and Leva are going to tell us a little bit about how the themes that we explored in the skit manifest through their work with UO Global. And then Jessica and I will talk just a little bit about Omprakash, and then we'll have further Q&A and discussion and just sort of group processing.
Thanks, Willy, and thank you everyone for being brave and courageous and entering different roles. It was also so great to see the different roles and of people who are involved in these conversations and people we might not mostly or always think about. So that was nice. And to move away from being more playful, just to talk briefly about UO Global and the program at the University of Ottawa that Rebecca and I had the honor of co-creating together and co-designing. And we heard a lot of the themes and in the dialogues that we had today around why can't we build these skills more locally, and why do we need to go internationally? What does proximity have to do? And these are really key nuances that the UO Global program really tries to hone. Is we're looking at skills such as cross-cultural skills and interpersonal skills, but the program does so by thinking about, what does cross-cultural mean? Are there different meanings? Can we look at cross-discipline? Can we look at, cross-class, socioeconomic class? What does it mean when you bring in students from engineering and business and development together and having these conversations? And how can they build their skills and values at a more local level? And so the course is really divided into like 3 main modules. The first really focusing on the individual and getting the students to reflect on their individual values and goals and where they're situated, and their relationship with others. And the second module focuses on really exploring these intercultural connections, exploring concepts such as power and privilege, and allyship and solidarity. And then the third module focuses on individual agency and what does it mean to be activists, and what does it mean to do active listening and active reflection, and how does that look like specifically at this kind of community level global learning. And so these modules are also accompanied with 4 experiential learning activities that they do to really then put into practice kind of these skills around global citizenship that they're really trying to hone throughout the program.
And just to add to that, in addition to the academic course that Leva and I co-designed, the program also requires that students do 4 experiential learning activities. One of the activities is meant to be a one-on-one program through the Buddy program, or what we call UO Connection. It's where a student works with usually an international student at the University of Ottawa. So they get a cross-cultural experience within the campus environment. So it's about reminding students that they don't have to travel thousands and thousands of miles to get to know people who have really interesting and different cultural experiences and to share those with each other. So there's that, and there's a variety of other activities that the students do, whether it's community service learning, working with newcomers to Canada, teaching people how to skate, or just really having that relationship building and engaging in their community, because the emphasis is really on what does it mean to be a citizen? What does it mean to be actively involved in your community, to be a caring member of your community, and how can those skills then potentially get translated into a more global experience in the future? We recognize that a lot of our students are going to go on to careers working in the global workforce, where they're going to be sitting beside people with different, or not maybe physically beside, but working maybe online with people from around the world. And so it's really important for us to develop those skills and to be able to be engaged with each other. So those are some of the ideas behind UO Global. It was designed as locally based global learning, not designed specifically as an alternative to going abroad, but as something that can complement a broader global engagement. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Rebecca and Leva. So I'll just chat a little bit about Omprakash. Ben has generously just shared a link. I'm sharing a few more, but I'll just talk about how Omprakash sort of relates to the themes we explored in the skit. So firstly, related to agency, our whole model, in a sense, is about, or a big part of the model is about removing that sort of middleman and disrupting the placement paradigm, removing the gatekeeper, allowing students to connect directly with our partners around the world and to do sort of what Jessica wanted to do. Regarding the second point around the theme around solidarity and allyship, there's a lot we could say there, but yes, trying to move beyond the sort of transactional package, superficial concept of what a global partnership looks like. And there's all kinds of ways that Omprakash supports this ecosystem of global partners beyond just like sending students. We don't really send students at all, but we hold space for relationships to emerge. And thirdly, yes, around rethinking the global, our Edge online learning platform and online learning and mentorship platform that I mentioned before, and which I'm sharing a link to, through that, we build partnerships with universities and other nonprofits to create space for this kind of conversation and to help students go deeper into this kind of reflection. So the global learning experience is not about traveling somewhere necessarily, although it might include that, but it's more broadly about rethinking a lot of their broader assumptions. I'll leave it at that for now. Jessica, we have the amazing privilege of having Jessica as part of our team and one of our mentors. So Jessica will speak briefly on that, and then we'll just have some time for broader Q&A.
Thanks, Willy. Yeah, and just to add, I think you did a great job of summing up those points and connections. But just to add from a mentor perspective, what I get the privilege of doing, working with students directly, either one-on-one or in cohorts, if it's a larger group with a university program, is I get to see the peer-to-peer interaction that occurs on the platform. So when students post something, other students read it and leave responses. And then in that way, there's actually an asynchronous dialogue that's created. And so my role as a mentor is to facilitate the conversation where necessary, but oftentimes, you know, my voice isn't needed. And I think as an educator, I think that's a really interesting way of approaching, you know, the traditional power dynamic of like the sage on the stage versus like the guide on the side. Sometimes I'll pop in with, you know, a resource, or, you know, there's this podcast that I heard that connects with this, but you know, many times students are, you know, exchanging in ways that I think traditional classroom pedagogies just maybe don't allow. So that's one thing that I find really exciting about being a mentor with Omprakash.
So we'd love to take the next 8 minutes and see where this conversation goes. If folks have specific questions for one of the presenters or for the group, that's fine. But also if anyone just wants to share their reflections, it can be about UO Global or Omprakash, but you can also take us back to the skit, or we can kind of have the meta conversation about how does this session feel different? How is this a different way of using our time together and talking about or embodying some of the complex questions in this work?
Well, if nobody's out there. I'll say something else. I really enjoyed how it engaged all aspects of my brain. So thank you for that, because that was refreshing. It's just some conference where I'm really stultified and like, ooh, you know, so that was great. Thank you. Really refreshing. The other question, so maybe this, I'll do research on it another time, maybe write you and Willy and Jessica, because that's very intriguing. But what I loved about this session was, for me, was that it really, and I know I saw your comments, was like really thinking about, clearly you don't have to go overseas to have a global type of experience, but it's great to really think, so what is the experience? What's the desired, you know? And it's in game and it's pre-game and in the whole and everything in between. I'm a human rights practitioner, so I look at more of, okay, how can I or have my students work on a project that can assist some NGO or some local community? But you know, that's not always what should be, but that's just me. I'm gonna admit that. So really great, thank you. Really enjoyed it.
I also appreciate the interactive nature of our session today. Thank you so much, presenters. You know, one thing that we began speaking about in our small group that I'd like to just share with all of us is the very fine line between nurturing and encouraging student agency to dream big and go far and do lots, and also to say, nah, you don't really know much. Just sit tight, kid. You know, and that sounds pedantic, of course, because the other side is filled with hubris, right? So what is that nice middle space that says, yes, there's a lot to do and you are filled with agency, young person in the world or older person in the world, whoever we are. And that also just says, well, maybe we need to think a little bit more about some of this, right? So that's a very beautiful tension that I think a lot about, so wanted to share it with you all.
Yeah, folks, relative tolerance for mistakes and embarrassment and misunderstanding. There's all relates to that kind of question about you know, how much humility versus a sense of desire to co-create with others and try and be an effective person, part of an effective group in the world. And the comfort level with your partners that you only find out by when things go wrong often is just part of that world that is, I think, irreducible to some degree.
Just in the last couple of minutes, I guess I'm curious to hear about some of the positives that Zoom has facilitated in terms of new and creative ways of doing experiential learning.
Yeah, I'll briefly comment on that. One of the exciting and very challenging new programs we've been running is actually more explicitly in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space rather than you know, development per se. But it turns out a lot of the same questions about power and identity and social change are relevant there as well. Oh, and it looks like Anu and Ben and another colleague will be exploring this tomorrow, which is awesome. But I'll just say it's been really interesting in that context to get feedback from students who, on the one hand, sometimes say, oh, this is really awkward to talk about in Zoom, if only we could be in person. But there are in-person elements to our program. And in response to those, some students have said, oh, this actually wasn't as good as the Zoom. It wasn't as facilitated as well, or it felt more uncomfortable, or even have just said, this in-person session went well because we were able to build on having already done some kind of warm-ups and stuff via Zoom. So it's kind of a both and situation, but thank you for that question. And I think maybe Rebecca has a little more to add, or anyone else.
Yeah, well, as Jessica and Leva both know, we've been offering the UO Global course as a bimodal course. So some students are in person, some students are online. And part of it is because some of our students haven't been able to travel to campus because of their restrictions. So that's been a really great opportunity for us to continue to have a conversation with the students, even in this difficult time. So that's, you know, it really has that advantage. And we've also used it, I think, and I think this is an interesting conversation to be had. Maybe tomorrow there'll be more on this, how we can use Zoom as a way to begin conversations with students and partners and professors and partner organizations, and extend that conversation much more before travel and much more after travel when travel is an opportunity, and to really build a stronger and more sustained relationship, protracted relationship with partners. And I want to see that happen. I think that's really the goal here, is to create that opportunity. And I think a lot of programs like we have Omprakash's program Edge now as a course option for our students at the University of Ottawa. We're trying to build it in terms of ladders of learning, right? So that students engage with partner organizations through digital learning platforms, and then use that relationship building as a launching off point for them to then go and spend some time with the partner organization. After they have some knowledge and understanding, they can actually, you know, really leverage that knowledge and do more, be more effective perhaps. And I just wanted to shout out to Ruth and Upenya, who in our breakout group gave such really thoughtful comments on the scene from the perspective of people who are not part of those conversations very often, but had some really useful analyses around power and agency that I really appreciated. So I wanted to thank them both, especially for their comments.
Thank you all very much. And Alicia has kindly put the link in the chat for the next session, but thank you. And I look forward to more learning together.
Thank you guys, it was great.
Yeah, thanks
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks.
We have to